Hello, I'm Jonasz Rewiński and this is Break the Fake. They make them, we break them, and tell you everything you need to know. Tonight, let's talk about a new controversy surrounding President Donald Trump. And surprisingly, it has nothing to do with either Ukraine or Israel. So here is the story. The US Air Force has redirected what it calls excess funding from its delayed nuclear missile program to retrofit a former Qatari royal jet, a Boeing 747-8, which is now being prepared to serve as President Trump's future Air Force One. Air Force Secretary Troy Mike told the Senate on the 26th of June that these were early-to-need funds that the high-priority Sentinel missile program simply didn't use last year. And he stressed this move will absolutely not delay the program's progress.
Reallocation of resources, there were dollars that were moved from the Sentinel program that were excess to need in 24, and that's what was used to fund the program. And we will ensure that those resources are there. Very clear, the Sentinel program is fully funded, all the resources it needs to execute as quickly as possible. Just with the number curity and some of the restructuring and termination liability, go into the details, but that money was early to need, and that was what was used to fund this effort.
So is it going to further delay the Sentinel program?
Absolutely not, Senator. Absolutely not.
Now, the transformation of the former Qatari aircraft into presidential transport is expected to take just short of a year, he said. What's unclear is how much money was actually shifted from the Sentinel program. Lawmakers have pointed out that the 2025 Sentinel budget was cut by nearly $1.2 billion. And so far, procurement documents that might clarify how much is being spent on the new Air Force One have not been made public. Earlier this month, Mike estimated that modifying the aircraft would cost less than $400 million, including upgrades to security and communication systems required for a presidential aircraft. That number is significantly lower than the earlier Air Force estimates, which suggested it could cost up to $1.5 billion to bring the plane up to presidential standards. Meanwhile, the Sentinel missile program is facing new challenges. In May, it was revealed that despite original plans to reuse existing infrastructure, the program will now require the construction of entirely new missile silos. That's just one more complication for a project already plagued by delays and ballooning costs. And so, critics are understandably going, ballistic, saying that buying a luxury plane isn't exactly money well spent in this situation. And all of this, it is quintessential Donald Trump. Once you grow into that billionaire lifestyle, some old habits die hard. However, if the public becomes unduly agitated about this, may I suggest an instant redemption arc? Call the Senate Republicans, tell them to go ahead with the Russia sanctions bill. Bill hits hard, Moscow backs down. I'm not sure if this is Nobel Peace Prize material, it could be, but imagine being the guy who finally squashed Putin's invasion of Ukraine. It focuses the minds of those around you, And after that, you're gonna have this thing, right? Qatari jet? What Qatari jet? Memories can actually dissipate if people focus on something else. Just saying. Now, remember the whole hold my beer thing? Well, in Russia, they've apparently devised their own take on this particular meme. But this time, it's always the Russian state media doing the hold my vodka bottle routine, and they always compete against themselves. Because frankly, insofar as F-tier propaganda goes, they're in the league of their own. Except perhaps for North Korea. Case in point, this little gem you're about to see right now.
Штахельшвайн, стальной дикобраз. На днях 4 месяца, как главная евробюрократка Урсула фон дер Ляйен, распираемая весенним обострением, предложила утыкать Украину шипами такого количества и качества, чтобы никто не переварил. Что по факту? Питается скотинка в долг. Но новость не в этом. Пайка усохнет, да и тренд, кажется, уже не шипы. Лизать. Вот этот тренд Павел Краснов пояснит.
Okay, I know you've got questions. It's a pig, but also it has spikes. I suppose you could call it a porcupine. Sorry. But look, there is no way the Russians had a pun like that in mind when creating this. Russia and self-aware sense of humor, please. Those are Soviet-born boomers we're talking about. No way they would be the ones putting the hog back into the hedgehog. Again, so sorry. Seriously though, I suppose there is two ways of actually looking at the situation. Take one. It's kind of offensive, because Russia tries to portray Ukraine as a creature many people find unpleasant. That was evidently the intention here, and it's not the first time. Dehumanizing tactics on live TV is just another day for Moscow presenters and pundits. Also, however, notice how Russia can shoot itself in the foot, even if it consciously tries to be evil. Don't get me wrong, they still are. I mean, launching hundreds of drones at innocent civilians is Osama bin Laden level of evil. But this porky animation they did, they wanted it to be disgusting. But am I the only one thinking a pig with glowing eyes, chameleon skin, and retractable spikes ended up being kind of too cool for that propaganda show they were running? Especially since Ukrainians online have been using the dancing pig meme as a tongue-in-cheek symbol of resistance for quite a while now. When you catch someone's insult mid-air and turn it into a badge of honor, then your enemy has no arguments left. Honestly, I would rather be this spiky battle boar than, say, a balding golem lookalike hiding in a bunker. Speaking of which, Vladimir Putin has once again decided to branch out into political fiction. Picture this. There is this meeting on the development of the so-called Novorossiya, which is already leaning hard into the fiction department because there is no such thing. It's occupied Ukraine we're talking about. Novorossiya isn't real. But that's not all, actually, because Putin, probably the real one, I can't tell with all those doppelgangers around, turned up at this meeting dedicated to the fictitious entity called Novorossiya and said that by 2030, the occupied regions of Ukraine should reach the average Russian level in all respects, including the quality of life.
К 2030 году Донецкая и Луганская народные республики, Херсонская и Запорожская области должны выйти на среднероссийский уровень по всем основным показателям и, разумеется, по качеству жизни людей.
Okay, schools, hospitals, cultural institutions, roads, housing, utilities, jobs with decent salaries. You probably already realize all this is literally all the things that Russia has not been able to do in Russia itself over the past 30 years. A good example is school number 47 in occupied Luhansk, where more than 200 children study. They want to optimize it by closing it down. The occupation authorities say we have enough money only for one school. Parents, including veterans of the armed conflict, all the nice folks who think invading a free country is a hobby to brag about, recorded a video appeal to Putin begging him to leave at least one school open. Just another day in the glorious land of Novorossiya, which isn't real, as we've already said, but the people living there definitely are, and so are their everyday problems.
Вынуждены обратиться к вам за помощью отстоять права наших детей, поскольку в настоящее время Министерство образования Луганской Народной Республики хотят закрыть нашу школу.
По сути, наших детей, а их 206 человек, просто выкинули на улицу.
For more than 2 years now, Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson and Zaporizhia have been making ends meet against the backdrop of war, occupation, persecution, mobilization, filtration and the destruction of everything that used to work. I suppose this adds up. If this is your daily average, then calling school closure a quality of life improvement makes a weird kind of sense. Let's be honest. A country where indoor plumbing remains the pinnacle of luxury for many probably shouldn't be preaching about quality of life. Imagine doing research on how to keep your wedding costs down and ending up asking Jeff Bezos for advice. Actually, imagine having $50 million to spare and spending all this and more on forcing people to believe Novorossiya really exists. All of a sudden, a wedding in Venice begins to look like a sensible option by comparison. And with this, we conclude this edition of Break the Fake. Please stay with us here on TVP World for more latest news and updates.